Do you ever want to do a daily op or an expo but can never find a team that's currently running one? Well, who needs a team? You just need yourself. So here's everything you need to know to solo whatever op or expo comes your way. Firstly, for daily ops, there are currently two different ops, the easy version and the the harder version. Uplink and decryption. Firstly, there's some common things that will be the same regardless of which op you run, and they're as follows. In terms of your perk cards, you'll want a blocker in strength to help against melee attacks, fireproof and endurance to help against explosions and flame attacks, Lone Wanderer in Charisma, which is going to give a boost to your AP and a nice damage reduction bonus. Ricochet in Luck will help deflect ranged attacks, and it has a very interesting interaction which I'll explain later on. And if you're running a bloodied build, then Nerd Rage in Intelligence will increase your damage and AP, and give you a slight boost to your damage resistance, and Serendipity in Luck, which gives you a very nice chance to avoid all damage for non-power armor users, just by the way. But these are the ones that matter for survivability, the rest will be up to you and your particular build. But for some quick recommendations for damage perk cards, never forget your build specific armor penetration cards, such as Incisor or Tank Killer or Stabilized. Tenderizer and Adrenaline are also very good cards to have in your setup for damage, and don't try Sneak in daily ops, it just doesn't work. So if you're crutching on a stealth build, it's mostly useless here, so keep that in mind. You will be seen. For your legendary perk cards, it'll depend on the modifiers, but Funky Duds will be great for when the poison modifier is active, and just a 2-star version is completely fine. You can stand in the poison and not give a damn at all with that. If you're in power armor, then Electric Absorption is a great card to go for. It charges your fusion core and heals you, which is the important part, from ranged energy attacks. For your armor, Unyielding if you're bloodied, and if you're full health, well, you don't really have many great options, but for survivability, you can go for an Overeater set. Even though on a full health build, it's kind of overkill, at least in uplink, but power armor doesn't get unyielding, so overeaters, or literally whatever you have, is fine. For your chem options, keep ones like Psycho Buff and Psycho Tats. That are going to be great for either of the ops, giving you a bit of damage and survivability. Now for specifics. Uplink isn't really a hard activity at all. Most of the time that I spend in uplink is literally just standing around doing nothing, waiting for the uplink to finish doing its thing, and then going for the final group of enemies and the boss, and then getting the hell out of there. I don't even really bother killing any of the enemies besides that required final group, so for uplink it doesn't matter too much whether you want to go in with power armor or regular armor. If you're a bloodied build or a full health build, you'll generally be just fine with going in with power armor, especially since stealth is useless, and that's what most bloodied builds crutch on, is the more safe route to take, so there's not really many specifics to worry about here besides common sense. The main thing you want to keep an eye on are the modifiers. If it's reflecting, then use your common sense, because the only thing that's going to kill you is yourself. Don't attack them when they're in reflected mode. Poison is another one. If you're not using something like the Union Power Armor set, then over in legendary perk cards, Funky Duds will have you covered. The rest of the modifiers shouldn't really give you any issues. For your weapons, this will depend on your build, so instead I'll talk about the legendary roles for your weapons. For uplink, you can focus on your damage ones like bloodied or anti-armor or executioners, aristocrats, it doesn't matter. If you want insane survivability, then vampires is what you want. The faster the weapon for vampires, the better. So automatic weapons, whether it's rifles, pistols, heavy guns, or melee options like the chainsaw, as long as they attack fast, that's what matters, but overall uplink really won't give you issues. Decryption is slightly different, as its main modifier is Savage Strike, which is always present, and Savage Strike bypasses 100% of your armor resistance, so you can see why it has a slight difficulty increase. Now, a lot of what I said before still applies in terms of the perk cards and chems and all that. However, if you want to really excel here and get that elder time, then there are a few things that will make a massive difference. Firstly, going in with regular armor, you are asking for a world of hurt. It's just how it is, okay, because Savage Strike bypasses resistance. Your main survivability here is damage reduction effects, not resistance, so the cards I mentioned before, Lone Wanderer gives you 20% damage reduction, Blocker gives 45% damage reduction against melee, Fireproof 45% damage reduction against explosion and flame damage. You get the point, you want damage reduction. The biggest damage reduction you will get will be in power armor, as a full set will give you 45% damage reduction. It's a massive step up compared to regular armor. This is also where Overeaters comes in super handy. If you're going in with regular armor, then Overeaters is a must-have, as it gives you damage reduction per piece of armor. Going with a full Overeaters power armor set, well, then you're really sitting pretty with damage reduction, so that's what you want to focus on. Going in bloodied is also quite a risk, pretty much immediate death for regular armor, but is doable with power armor, because then you can also leverage mods like Emergency Protocols, which reduces incoming damage by 50% when below 20% health. So in power armor, you can really start to stack these things and not be constantly stressed out about just surviving. Electric Absorption in legendary perk cards also synergizes here with power armor, so you can get healing from that as well, whereas regular armor can't. In terms of your weapon legendary effects, this is also where you'll want to probably definitely go with vampires, as in decryption. You need to be attacking and killing enemies, so as long as you're attacking, you're healing yourself. This pairs well with Ricochet. Remember in the beginning when I said it has an interesting interaction? Well, anything that ricochets and hits an enemy will also heal you because you're holding a vampire's weapon, so it takes the effect from that and applies it to the ricochet. Small, but it adds up. So decryption overall is definitely where you want to focus on survivability to the extreme, whereas uplink you can have a bit more leeway with your build basically. But both are very doable all by yourself, you just need to prepare for decryption a little bit more than uplink. Now when it comes to expeditions, currently there's 4 of them. The Pit, which has Union Dues and From Ashes to Fire, and Atlantic City, which has Tax Evasion and the most sensational game. In terms of what you need to know to solo these, I group them all very much with uplink from daily ops. They're just not difficult. What I'd suggest is going in with a mindset of learning them first, learn the layouts, learn where things spawn. Daily ops pretty much has no spawn variety, the receivers and boss spawns always in the same spot. Expedition has a little bit more variety, but only a certain amount. So learn the layouts, learn the spawn spots, the different objectives, and once you have that done, then go in to get max rewards. In terms of builds, there's no Savage Strike here to worry about, so again, rock whatever you want. The same advice for ops applies here. The plus side is that stealth actually works here, so for stealth users, you can rejoice, especially bloodied stealth builds. You can take your time for the most part because there's no timer besides 1 or 2 occasions, which I'll explain in a moment. So really, don't fear expeditions, just go for it, especially since you don't even need to do the annoying battery quests first anymore. If you're looking for easier ones to do, for the Pit, go for Union Dues, and for Atlantic City, go for Tax Evasion. It's not that the other 2 are hard, but they do have a little bit more happening in them, as well as some timers. Ashes to Fire has the timer at the end to save the folks stranded in the area, and it's basically a nuke zone, so it needs power armor or something like the Chinese stealth armor if you want to survive easily. And the most sensational game has an overall timer that you need to beat, so once you're more comfortable with the spawns and what's happening, then go for those. But really, I'm not going to drag out any information here because it's already been said. What works in ops will work here. If you're looking for some tips and things that you may not know about 76, then this is definitely the video for you. If it helped you out, then hey, hit that like button. But for now, thanks so much for watching.